Hi, I'm Patrick Evard, and welcome back to A Bridge Between. I'm here with someone who probably knows me better than most people, Tammy Boyle. Gosh, that's really weird to say. She's my mom. I get to interview my mom. Please don't share embarrassing stories.
Okay, maybe.
Well, I do want to share a couple stories.
Oh, okay. Don't share embarrassing stories.
You know, I don't think it's so embarrassing as much as it kind of shows the personality types that we are.
Okay,
I'm very sarcastic
fair.
in so many ways. A little bit of a drama queen,
Okay.
kind of my thing. But I think the biggest thing from all that is our personalities are different in that sense, because when we were growing up, I remember we'd be sitting at the dinner table and my two siblings and I would be, well, going back and forth, for better terms. You know, make this sound
Bantering.
better. Bantering is a good word for this. Bantering, going back and forth, you know, giving each other a hard time. And my mom would be usually sitting there very quiet, wouldn't say anything, maybe smile. I don't know if it was a good smile. Then one time, she decided to join in. Now, for those of you who don't know, my siblings and I are the kindest, most sweet, honest people you will ever meet, except when you make a comment towards us.
A sarcastic comment.
A sarcastic comment, actually any comment. And during that, we basically spent the next 30 minutes, sorry, Mom. Sorry about that. Apologies.
Apology accepted.
And then we had to come to Jesus meeting about our sarcasm shortly after that. But I have to say, my favorite stories are more the overall arching ones. That wasn't a one-time thing. The fact that I was always able to come and share my dreams with my mom, you know, whether that was being an actor, playing football, something I wrote, a skit I wrote, whatever it was, you were always willing to listen and offer critique and offer support. And when I decided I wanted to begin speaking and, you know, getting to do very similar to what you did, you were the first person to really show up and offer those critiques as well. And so I'm very thankful for that. And that's why I'm very excited to do that. And as you can tell, I'm very nervous because I've already drank most of my water. And now she's going to share stories, and I'm going to drink this. Wish it was alcohol.
We promise it's not alcohol. Well, that's very meaningful to me, and it made me think of a story that, a memory that I have of you. So, Patrick, you were a football player from a very young age, and you played all through junior high, and you played into high school. And when you were a senior, Patrick decided that he wasn't going to play football his senior year. Now, as a mom of a football player, I had mixed feelings about that. I wanted to respect what Patrick wanted to do, but I also loved going to football games. I'm a huge football fan. And so I was a little sad that he wasn't going to play football his senior year. But the comment that he made was, I want to do some other things my senior year. And so I supported him and said, you know, I honor your decision. I didn't say, I'm really sad you're not playing football. But one of the things that he did during his senior year is he tried out for the High School Musical. Now, Patrick had never been in a musical. And he tried out for Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown.
What's the name of the
My character?
No,
You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Okay, you're going to have to edit that out. He tried out for a role in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And he got the part of Linus. And not only did he have to sing and dance, but he had a solo where he danced and sang with his blanket. And I will tell you, they did 4 performances the weekend that they performed, and I went to 3 of them. It was so much fun to see Patrick doing something totally different than you had ever done. And it wasn't perfect, but it was so fun, and he had such a great time. That's one of my really fond memories. And okay, I have one more to share.
I was like, yeah, that wasn't that bad.
I know. No, that wasn't embarrassing. And this one really isn't embarrassing either. But Patrick started playing football in 6th grade, and when he was in 7th grade, he played on a city league. And they started practicing in the early fall, and then they would go into the season. And there was one time that he went to practice and it was so cold. I mean, we live in Colorado, so fall can get awfully cold, especially later in the day. And they would practice, at the end of school. And I remember this one time that Patrick was out on the field playing, and I was waiting for practice to be over. And he came to the car, and he was literally shaking. He was so cold. And so, I mean, I'm cranking up the heat and all of this, and I said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And he was like, as he's sitting there shaking, he was like, yes, I do. And he did. You played for a number of years through broken arms and all kinds of fun things.
Never happened during football.
No, it didn't happen on the field, but happened around it.
I'm really glad. I'm going to share the last part of that story that you kindly omitted for me. I was bawling my eyes out.
It's true.
Oh, it was so bad. And then when she asked the question, it was like, no, yeah, I totally want to keep playing football.
See, I didn't tell you the embarrassing part, that he was weeping when he got in the
I just
car.
felt for the viewers, you deserve to hear the whole story. And yeah, might as well just give you all the embarrassing details. But we're not here to talk about our relationship, as many stories as we could tell from that.
We could.
And maybe that'll be another video down the road. But today is something a little more important, I think. And for me, this really has hit home recently with all the developments that we've seen in social media, with people talking about it more, which we'll get to in a moment. But I would like you to share with the viewers what you do for a living.
Sure, I would love to. So I currently work as Chief Development Officer, meaning that I manage all of the fundraising that happens for the organization that I work for. I work for an organization called Unbound Now, and they are an organization that works to fight human trafficking on all levels: labor trafficking, sex trafficking, and we do a lot of work throughout the state of Texas, Louisiana, and overseas. And our work is only continuing to increase, and I am responsible for raising all of the funds in order to support the programs that we do.
And so what got you into this work? Because this isn't something that people just wake up one day and go, yeah, this seems like a good idea.
Yeah, and I will say it's hard work because of the stories that you hear. It's difficult to hear the stories of people who have been in that world, and the trauma and the difficulty that they have as they recover from coming out of trafficking. However, I'll tell you a story as to why I chose to go in this direction. I've worked in the nonprofit field most of my life and worked for organizations that I felt incredible passion about. I worked for the American Cancer Society. I worked for Prison Fellowship, an organization that provides resources to men and women who are incarcerated and their families. I've worked for a number of organizations that just felt really important, the work that we did. Unbound Now feels like some of the most important work I've done in my whole life. And when I was speaking at a conference about 15 years ago, I met a young girl. She was in high school at the time. She was 16 years old. And for whatever reason, even though there were over 2,000 people at this conference, she and I connected. We shared each other's information, and we stayed in touch. And over the course of the next 2 years, she began to share with me what had happened to her in her life. So even though she stayed in school, she was a straight A student, she was involved in church. I mean, she was a volunteer at the conference that I was speaking at. She wasn't just an attendee. She was actually working as part of the crew for this conference. But what I didn't know, and it took her over a year to tell me, is that her mother had trafficked her starting at the age of 4. Over the course of her life, her mother trafficked her to men in order to fund the lifestyle she wanted to live, a substance abuse issue. When she was 17 years old, she ran away from home and never went back. But what's amazing about her is that not only did she do the work necessary to really get to a decent place, to be healthy and whole and happy, I can tell you that 15 years later, this young woman now has a master's degree. She works for an organization called Truckers Against Trafficking, where she educates long-haul truckers on how to watch for signs of trafficking, and she's married. And it's been amazing to watch her journey from such a difficult place to such healing, wholeness, and, as the scripture says, beauty from ashes. That God used the ugliest thing that could have possibly happened to a young girl to bring amazing beauty. Others are learning about how to watch for those signs and how to look for people. Truck stops are a huge place for trafficking, and she's making a huge difference as she works to train people all over the world.
And so this is crazy that hearing this story, it's an incredible story, because as I've been learning and researching this more, I did hear a story about a young girl who, 15 years old, went to a Dallas Mavericks game with her dad and had to go to the bathroom. And he never saw her again that day. She had disappeared. She had been, what they believed, was kidnapped. And when they went to go to the police about this situation, the police told them they had to file from where they were from. And I don't remember the town they were, but they weren't from Dallas. And their fear was, our daughter is never going to be found if you don't start in Dallas. They didn't want to start in their hometown. For all they knew, she could have been somewhere else, another state, and they were worried they were never going to find her again. Well, a gentleman, who I won't share his name, and I know he shared it, but he doesn't share his face because this is his line of work. He offered to help them. And during that time, he researched prostitution sites, looking for any sign of this girl being out there. And he found her in Oklahoma City. She was put as a 21-year-old, being offered for sex for people, and he had to be very careful with how they went about it, because any sign that they might be coming, she might be gone forever. And they were able to rescue her. And I believe she was gone for about 10 days.
I think that's right.
10 days. And the story they share, and I recommend looking this video up and hearing the parents' story, because they're obviously going to share it far greater than we ever could, because it's their story. But what really hit me was how important and how real this is.
Right.
Yes, we can all go see a movie, which we'll talk about here, but to actually hear real stories and just almost how easy it sounded for it to happen.
Right.
Was the scary part. And for someone who just wanted to go to the bathroom, I was at a concert this past weekend, and all I could think about is, could that happen right here? What if someone was taken right here? And I know there's other ways that people are taken. It's not just that. But it stuck with me. And I think that's why it's been so important for what Sound of Freedom has done.
Yes.
I think the movie, for me, when I went, I had no expectation besides being told I had to see this movie. Oh, it's going to be really hard. And they weren't wrong. And I was sitting in a row with a lot of fathers, and I believe most of them were with their wives. None of their kids were there. And about 30 minutes into the movie, I could hear the sniffling, the guy next to me is constantly, And then what was beautiful for me, kind of witnessing that, because I was doing the same. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It was like being cold all over again. But what happened was then he just stopped caring. He stopped trying to wipe away. He just let it go.
Yeah.
And so did I. And the movie hit on some really important things. It opened a lot of conversations. I've seen more in the last 2 to 3 weeks on my social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, about sex trafficking than I have ever seen before. And yes, there is a lot about the movie out there. And there's a lot of different discussions going on with the movie. But what we can all take from the movie is what it ended up doing in a wider basis.
Right.
That it opened doors. It showed us, hey, this is real. This is a conversation we need to have. These are things that we need to work on to end. And we're all called to have a part of this. So yes, going to see the movie is a great first step. And I'm going to ask that you share kind of how that was also a first step, and the kind of what happens, during this. And you've told me that it's step one of many steps. So if you would like to share that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Patrick. So one of the things that I think is so important that the movie did is it opened a conversation amongst our culture about what human trafficking really looks like. And while this movie portrayed a singular instance of a sex trafficking victim overseas, again, it opened the conversation, and we have seen more conversation, like you said, on all social media platforms. You're seeing it out there on videos and YouTube and all kinds of places where people are talking about what does human trafficking really look like. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that that conversation has been opened even more. It's one of the things that I think over the last 5 to 8 years, I think more discussion is being had. But one of the things that I recognize is that it's very difficult for us as Americans to believe that it's happening in our backyard. I think that's one of the most challenging pieces is when you watch that movie and you see this overseas rescue, and in our minds, I think kind of like, right, that happens overseas, that happens elsewhere. But it happens right here. It happens right here in the smallest neighborhoods to the largest neighborhoods. And Patrick's, your example of what happened at the game is one example. One thing you may not know, just as a point of reference, is that the Super Bowl is one of the number one places that people are trafficked in the whole country. Number one. Now, those of us who watch the Super Bowl every year because we enjoy a good football game, would you have thought that? Would that have struck you that while you're watching that game, that behind the scenes there are women being trafficked for very wealthy men, for, all kinds of circumstances? I wouldn't have thought of that. However, those are the kinds of things that we need to think about as a culture, is how is it happening right in our own neighborhoods? And some of the key ways that it happens is online. So oftentimes, I'll give you an example, a young girl will be DM'd by someone else who either pretends to be younger than they are, or reaches out and says, by the way, I'm 35 or I'm 45, but you're really cute. And they start to build a relationship with this young girl, and they begin to build that trust. And unfortunately, online is one of the most unsafe ways for people to build a relationship. If you don't know the person, you should not be connected with them on social media, because there are so many lies and there is so much manipulation. So I've heard it over and over again where a young girl, like 13, 14 years old, will get connected with an older gentleman who will then basically work to build a trust and a manipulation that he loves her, he wants to be in a relationship with her, and wants to connect with her. And that is the most common way that young girls are trafficked in the United States. And all of us, for the most part, are on social media. And we need to be very aware of that. And if we have children, young people in our lives, we need to talk to them about being aware of how this can happen. Labor trafficking happens all over the United States, where people who work in restaurants, or people who work as maids, or people who work in some kind of service industry will often get manipulated into working for low wages, far lower than minimum wage, be given room and board, but then be told that they owe far more than they're getting paid. And so they will never, quote, be out of debt to the people that have hired them. It often happens not just with immigrants. It often happens with people who are down on their luck, cannot find a position, and end up getting hired either in construction work or some kind of customer service type work, and end up getting manipulated into believing that they can never pay off the debt that they owe. So these are the kinds of things that happen all over the United States. And we might say, well, that just happens to people who are sneaking over the border. That's who gets trafficked. And while, yes, there is trafficking that occurs on the borders, that is not the only place, and it's not even the primary place that trafficking happens. We have a huge amount of work that we just launched in Louisiana. We've been asked by the state of Oklahoma and other states that are not border states to come in and join the fight against human trafficking. So it's not just about a border issue. It's really about how people are bought and sold within our country and overseas. And again, Sound of Freedom cracked open that conversation in a way that hopefully will continue to make a difference long term, that people will continue talking about it, continue looking for the signs, and continue to look for ways that they can help in that fight against human trafficking of all sorts.
And I think you sharing all those things, and the fact that this isn't just a overseas thing or a border thing, that this is everywhere. The Super Bowl this past year was hosted in Dallas. This year, it's going to be hosted in Las Vegas. And I think, you think about how big these areas are, and the availability for these things to happen. I don't think most of us know that. And I don't think most of us are aware that it's going on. I think a lot of us, prior to what's been discussed recently, may have shed a blind eye to it and just, it's not my problem until it is.
Right.
Until it's someone you know. And I think that's where the conversation needs to start, is how can we help? How can we be a part of these things? But I think before we get to how we can help is, in all things that, I like to discuss on here is it's faith.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to do a job like this, I feel like a lot of faith has to be involved. And not in the, like, hey, we say a prayer and we're good. But it goes beyond, because if you don't have faith that we're going to be able to help these people, if we don't have the ability to find these people, well, it probably becomes a really hard job to do. And so I'm wondering, how is faith involved in your line of work for you and for your, maybe teammates is a better word than coworkers, because you're all a team with one goal, to ending this horrific violence.
Yeah, absolutely. It is horrific. And I will say that faith is a key component to being able to walk this journey of being involved in the human trafficking world. We use the word hope all the time. And, Scripture talks about, don't ever be afraid to tell people about what your hope is in. And our hope is in the fact that God loves us, that Jesus is present in our lives, and that in whatever way we behave with those that are rescued from the world of trafficking, it is as simple as telling someone that they have value, buying them a hot meal, playing a game with them. Maybe they've never played a game, taking them for an ice cream cone, buying them a new pair of shoes. Isn't that just like Jesus? Isn't that the hands and feet of Christ? And the only way that any of us could do it is by that hope that we have in faith. We are constantly reading scriptures about the joy we have in the work that we do, and we are constantly encouraging each other that while this is hard work, it really is such important work, and we know that God's hand is in it, and that is what gives us the grace to continue to walk that journey.
That is awesome. And that's how I view so many things in our world, is where's the hope, where's the faith, where's the joy? And this is a tough subject where you could sit there and go, there's no joy, there's no hope, there's no faith, there's no love, this is just evil, this is just... And with many things in our world and many things in our own lives, there is joy in that suffering that we wish on no one, suffering and pain that we wish on no one. And yet, by what you're doing in this job, by that ice cream cone, there's that joy and there's that hope. And that's all we can offer. We're in an imperfect world, and Christ offers us a way to share and spread that peace and joy.
Right. One of the scriptures that I think we all hold on to is when Jesus leaves the 99 sheep to go find the one. We often say we would do it for the one. We would do it for one person. But there are 50 million people out there who are trafficked in some kind of way. We want to do it for the one, but we want to do it for more.
I think that's where a lot of us can come in. Because obviously we're not in this line of work, but there is a way for us to help. And if you could just kind of let us know, and maybe there's a link that we can post as well, and we'll post in the caption, of how we can help people who have seen Sound of Freedom, or people who before Sound of Freedom have just wanted to find a way to help. And I know myself included, I want to find a way to help, and maybe it's not even finance, maybe it's volunteer, maybe it's there's something we can do. So what are some ways that we can help?
I'm so glad you asked. So there's several ways that you can help. The first is to learn what you can about human trafficking, to learn what the signs are. And especially if you are an educator in ministry, you are a healthcare worker, you are a lawyer or a judge or a DA, or you're involved in any kind of way in working with people who have gotten in trouble, you need to learn the signs of human trafficking. We actually have a training on our website that you can take to learn what the signs are of human trafficking. www.unboundnow.org is our website. You can learn more, you can find resources, you can volunteer. We have a number of places and a number of ways that you can volunteer if that's something you're interested in. You can pray for us. You can pray for all those, and we are not the only organization. You can pray for all those who are fighting human trafficking in all its forms, all over the world. We have 2 people in Mongolia who every day go to the airport and they stand there and they greet young women who are coming off airplanes from other countries, and they ask them if they need help. That's all they do every day. If each of us watched for the signs, if each of us knew what to look for, and there are a number of things that you can learn about how to look for those signs, and we just ask the words, do you need help? Are you being held against your will? Are you being made to do something that you don't want to do? Are your papers being held from you? Is your ID being held from you? There are simple but really powerful ways that you can watch for those signs, and you could be the one who says to someone, how can I help you? Go to our website, unboundnow.org, and learn more about who we are and about how we work. One of the things that the movie Sound of Freedom does not go after is what comes next. What comes after someone is rescued from a trafficking situation. And I will just say, everybody's journey looks different, but it is a long journey. It's a long journey of healing and restoration to bring someone to a place where they feel like they have dreams again, they have hopes again, they have ideas of what they want to do with their lives. I mean, I saw a quote from a young girl who was rescued by Unbound Now out of trafficking, and after she had been out for about a year, she said, I finally have dreams again. My goal is to graduate from high school. It's always been one of my dreams that I would, but I didn't think I would. Those are the kinds of things. It's a long journey, but with people's support, with good counselors, good medical care, a safe place to live, clothes to wear, warm food, it can make all the difference in the world. We have a lot of people who donate to help buy a meal for a young person or for an adult who's come out of trafficking, to help somebody find a safe place to live. There's all kinds of ways that you can help support what we do.
I think this right here is why I believe in this channel. Because this channel has always been about bringing people of the faith and not of the faith together. And what better way that we all come together than to end something as horrific as this? This is the way to bridge the gap. This is the way to create a bridge between one another, to find common ground. Because I think we all agree, no matter the faith, no matter what we believe, no matter how we feel about one another, what our beliefs are, this is something we all have the same footing on.
Right. It's horrific. It's terrible. It's a scourge on society all across the world. And if every one of us looked for a way that we could be a part of the solution, it would make a world of difference.
It would. So, thank you so much for coming on here with
Thanks
me.
for inviting me, Patrick.
Absolutely. I don't got anything else. It's pretty cool to get to interview your mom for something like this, especially. I would love to have you on a show again where we can maybe talk about some more of those embarrassing stories.
I love that idea. Count me in.
I regret. But this has been a bridge between. And this is our way to bridge the gap. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh God, thank you for giving